Okay. Don't hit keep it started, right? Okay, so you hit record. All right. You're recording. All right. Ready? I want to do this like cool intro thing where I like come out of the trees and I'm like, "Hey, there I am. Hey, welcome." See, that's how we're just going to keep it like that. Hi, it's Ifft. Welcome to my new podcast. This is Crocodile Dumb Eddie about my love for Australia. And I want you to watch every episode of this. We only filmed about 4 of them with some of my good friends, comedians from Australia. And I want you to know that I'm coming to Australia. That's right. I'm doing shows in Melbourne on November 22nd. November 23rd, I'm in Sydney at the Comedy Store. Melbourne, I'll be at the Comics Lounge. Melbourne Comics Lounge on the 22nd. 23rd, I'll be in Sydney, Australia. And then I think it's like, is it the 27th, the 28th? I don't know. 27, 28, 29. I'm in Wollongong. I'm in Adelaide at the Rhino Room. And then I'm I think it's like the 20. I don't know. You're going to have to look on idiof.com. But I'm in Brisbane at the Sit Down Comedy Club. So you can get your tickets. Pre-sale starts November 19th. November 20th, they all go on sale. So if you want to get the good seats, go to November 19th. No, oh, September 19th. September 19th. September 19th, the good tickets go on sale. September 20th, all the tickets go on sale. So like if you want to be like first, you go September 19th, get the pre-sale. I don't know, there might be a discount or something. But otherwise, just watch my podcast, enjoy it, check everything out on idiof.com. And then this is like, I'm going to do like an exit. Is there anything else I had to say? No. Okay. See you in Australia. I'm like a koala. Welcome to Crocodile Dumb Eddie.
Now, did you hang on? All right, go. Do you think?
I am your host of the show. This is pretty hard. I've got my Ned Kelly costume on. I'm going to take this off for a second.
Yeah.
It'll go back on later. I'm the host of the show. This is my show about my love for Australia, where I bring on some of my favorite Australian comedians, celebrities, etc. One of them today is both of those things. One of my favorite comedians of all, one of my oldest friends in Australia. And I don't mean old like old, the one I've known since my first trip to Australia 17 years ago or something. So welcome to one of the greatest comedians, TV hosts, all around great Australian, Will Anderson. Thanks for coming on. You are the first guest I have on this show. I'm going to do about 10 of these. My wife made me costumes for every show. The only one that could travel with me was Ned Kelly.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me on this show, firstly, and greeting me with like the closest a white middle class Australian man will ever get to racism. That was that was the equivalent of blackface to an Australian. You've done Australian face, like an American playing Waltzing Matilda while he's cosplaying Ned Kelly, and it does. Firstly, I love that this is your first one. And the costume that you have gone with for the very first introduction to the very first episode is the one that blocks your mouth from the microphone. So literally the muffled, like, I mean, you could have rolled in Ned Kelly episode 3, but you've just decided off the bat, let's put the hole in this mask nowhere near where the audio device will go on this mask. You didn't even do it Disney style. Like,
No.
you know, those Disney characters where they'll like have the eyes up top, but then they'll have like a little microphone face down below so that they can talk to people.
Black mesh that I could see through.
Right.
No, this was. You're lucky you didn't get Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, because that one that's coming up in 3 episodes, and I'm not looking forward to that one because I do not like wearing drag at all.
Here's what I will say though is like Ned Kelly being one of like our Australian, folk
Jesse
heroes.
James.
Yeah, our Jesse James, he was an outlaw, a bandit, a robber, a bushranger, as we call them in Australia. But it really shows a missed opportunity when it came to encouraging people to mask up.
Oh,
That's what I will say. Like, Australians, like Americans, a lot of them were very reticent to wear masks during the pandemic. But Australia has a long cultural rebel persona around a mask. And the Ned Kelly mask was worn appropriately with a gap like over the mouth, covering the nose, covering the mouth, had some eye holes. Like we should have really leaned into that during the pandemic in Australia, I would have thought.
I when my wife made this one, I was like, this is just a bad idea. This is and then when I was choosing the music for the show,
Mm.
I was like, well, what's Aussie style music? Like, what is Aussie music? And so I started looking, and it was all didgeridoo stuff. And I was like, I don't think this is appropriate. And I was like, I think I'm just going to upset all the guests and everyone listening to this that is from Australia. Anyone that is the slightest bit liberal is going to be like, no, no, no. And so I text my favorite super liberal friend, Arj Barker, and I said, "What do you think? Do you think I could use this music?" And he goes, "I'm pretty sure it could be taken for cultural misappropriation. I think you might want to." And I was like, "Looks like I'm doing it." So
Here's what I will say about Waltzing Matilda is if people don't know that song, it's the unofficial Australian national anthem because Australians, unlike what we perceive of Americans, this is what I will say is we don't love our national anthem. It's a terrible, terrible song, and we are not impressed by it in any way. Like the Americans seem to lean into the national anthem. Every sporting event, every major event has some celebrity attempting the national anthem, but we
what
do
wait,
that. But
what is your national anthem?
Advance Australia Fair.
Oh, I thought it was Strawberry Kisses.
Yeah, well, to be honest, if it was a head-to-head vote, I reckon Strawberry Kisses would get across the line because Nikki Webster, at least we remember fondly from the Olympics, right? So I think you're right, and it's more fun, it's more upbeat. If you win a gold medal at like the Commonwealth Games and they banged on Strawberry Kisses, is that please stand for the Australian national anthem, Strawberry Kisses. And it'd be a boost for Nikki Webster's career. She's back out and about singing Strawberry Kisses at all the major events.
I always thought your national anthem was that I am, you are, we are Australian because I think
Mm,
that's kind of like your Sweet Caroline. Like if Sweet Caroline comes on in America, the whole bar starts singing it. Like people just can't. It's like
mm.
trying not to do the drum solo in Phil Collins in the Air Tonight. You just can't not do it. And I've seen Australians when that song come on get so weirdly like Australian, like they'll put
Yeah.
arms around each other and they're like, I am you. And I'm like, this is a weird song.
Well, you know what it is. It's the airbrushed, filtered, Photoshop version of what we imagine our country to be. So that's like, the lyrics are literally, we are one, but we are many. From all the lands on earth we
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
Like it's all about what the Australian dream and the Australian utopia and Australia is at its best, right? It is a very multicultural place
Sure.
at its
At its best.
best, right? And that song is the mum who can never see any bad in but it also acknowledges the one thing about it is it acknowledges that there were people in Australia before the white people, which I think for a lot of Australians also is a much better song to sing than this song that was written by colonizers who believed that Australia was terra
You guys are
nullius when
so
they.
much better about that than we are. You talk about indigenous people all the time. You recognize them. You have the flag. I mean, we literally have reservations and we pretend like Indian people do not exist. Like it is acceptable almost to joke about them. It is like there isn't one group of people that are more taken for granted than in like indigenous Indians in America. And I'm very like you guys think like, oh, Aussies are so racist. You guys are pretty good about like to some extent, way better than us.
We didn't
Way
give
better than
we
us.
didn't give them casinos though in
Yeah.
return for the land. We didn't
Oh,
say,
that's
"Hang
true.
on,
That's
turn
that's
Alice
true.
Springs into a giant casino."
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That is a good point. You should have. You should have.
I mean, it's not too late. The way Australia's going, everything's going to be casino soon. So
Oh, really? Are there even I haven't been there since before the pandemic. Are there even more pokie machines?
Australia is the number one, I believe, per capita gamblers in the world now. Like even in front of countries that historically were that, like Singapore and places like this. Like it's most like sports betting's been the big rise in Australia. Like every advertisement on television now is for sports betting. You can place.
I I love surfing. It's
Mm,
pretty much the only sport I religiously watch is the WSL, the surf competitions. And when I was in Australia, I was able to bet on it. It was heaven for
mm,
me. It was like, wait, so I get to take the thing I love the most and make
mm.
it even better. And
Yeah,
it was
like yeah, watching. human beings in perfect unison with the ocean, this magnificent beast that covers most
Yeah.
of the planet and gives us life, that if it rises will decimate the human population, and you see a man out there with nothing more than a board being in tune with that ocean, riding it, and you think this is not quite enough. Can I bet on
Nope.
whether this
Nope.
guy's going to be better at it than the other guy?
Yep. And I
Then
love
this will be a life-changing, beautiful experience. If I could just wager on which one of these guys can do it better.
I will tell you a short story and then we'll move into what this show is about. But I I love dogs. I own 3 of them. I love them more than anything in the world. I don't like I don't like horse racing or dog racing because I feel like it's cruel to animals, and I'm not a big fan of it. Uh but I was in a pub one night and I was bored and I saw those greyhounds running, and the next thing I know,
Oh my God.
I'm placing bets. And the next thing I know, I'm absolutely obsessed. And they're calling me. I'm like doing a gig at this pub, and they're like, "Coming to the stage, Eddie Ifft." And I'm like, wait. And they're like, "Eddie Ifft." And I'm like, "No, wait, come on, number 4, come on."
Now, because this show, I don't know much about this show. You intentionally didn't tell me much about this show,
No,
and
I don't
but the
do that.
one thing that I do know is the premise is how much you love or know about Australia, right? That's like
Yes,
okay. So, do you know what the Australian colloquial term for greyhound racing is? Do you know what they are called in Australian slang?
I don't know. We're gonna get into slang, so tell me this one.
The dish lickers. You were betting on the dish lickers.
The dish lickers. That's what
Yeah,
they're
that's
called.
what the greyhounds are called, dish lickers.
Why?
Well, I
Why
guess
is it
because dogs lick dishes. I don't know how they've really come up with that one, but they are known as the dish lickers.
90% of your slang? I just go, I don't know. It's so childish. It's
Yeah.
so the whole adding the e's and o's to everything, like Edo, Jono. Like when I go surfing, every single part of surfing has like an e or o to it. Like, mate, you're gonna put on your boardies and get your rashy, and then put on your everything has something that I just feel like saying, like, I'm gonna get my Bordeaux and put my finnies in it, and and then I'm gonna paddle out to the outsidey,
I
and
mean, it does make things sound more fun, though, doesn't it? Like even when you're saying it now, I'm like, that does sound like a good day out.
it does. It sounds like when you were a little kid with your friends and
Yeah.
you were like, "Hey, let's make up our own language."
Yeah, Australian is like a parent not trying to swear in front of their kids. Like everything just has a different name. Like everything's kind of a code name. Like it's wee and poo poo. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes,
like
yes, yes. Like even the drugs, everyone has these like childish names for drugs. Like you want to meet me in the dunny and do some Charlie. Like wait, what's cocaine called there? Wait, what's the I forget. Like everything has a different like um just so many different terminology. It's funny. My daughter always says when I ask her, I want her to learn Spanish,
yeah.
and she doesn't want to learn it. And I'm like, you have to. And she's like, why? I'm like, I don't know why. It's good. Do it. And she's like, I want to learn to speak Australian. And I'm like, that's too difficult. Spanish is much easier.
You know what the funny thing is like the small words that you don't know are different. So you know this more, as much as I know this in reverse because we've both spent time doing comedy in each other's countries, and you pick up most of the major ones. You understand immediately that
Sure.
brekkie is breakfast or
Yeah.
whatever, right? That's easy.
Yeah.
But I had this routine that was just working well enough, it turns out, that for as long as I did it in America, people weren't actually really knowing what I was talking about,
Oh, that's
which was
awesome.
sultanas. Like people don't really say sultanas in America.
No,
They say like
no.
raisins, right? Or
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, someone told me that like when I left America. Someone could have
So
told me that like in the 5 years when I was doing that routine where I kept saying sultanas
they
and people
they let
laughed regardless.
they let you go that long?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm surprised you didn't figure that out because you're a pretty astute guy. Like that's something I
Right.
would do.
It was
That's something.
obviously buried enough within the joke that the whole line didn't rely on it, and in
But
context, they could understand what I was talking about. But said it for 5 years, I reckon, on
but
stage
I'm
without
also
anyone telling me.
I'm also a firm believer that that uh, the Americans. I just realized something. I want to add my headphones on for some reason.
Oh, okay.
The hold on.
Eddie has walked away from the show to get some headphones.
That'll get edited together. Um, so I am a firm believer that the what are they called? The comedy audiences, like when I see an Australian comedian in America or a British comedian or anyone from another, I want to hear what they have to say. I don't want them to try to switch to American. I want to see as much authenticity as I can. I don't want to, like, so I would kind of like that you said sultanas, and I'd be like, oh, I want to find out what sultanas are.
Right.
I don't know Americans. We know what Americans are like, so they're like, how many syllables was in that? That was pretty difficult. So they like to have things spoon fed to them, but I thought when I first went to Australia, I had heard a phrase called "crack a fat."
Oh yeah.
And I thought because of the accent, it was a fart. Like, hey, mate, I just cracked a fat. And so, trying to be as Australian as possible, I had said it a number of times because we used to say crack a fart. Like, that was a
Yeah.
phrase in America, right? Bud, did you say crack a fart? Yeah, crack a fart was a saying. And so, when I said crack a fat, it did not come through the way that I wanted it to, especially when I was in a pub behind a guy ordering a beer.
Well, yeah, right. Like, but also when it also smelt bad.
Yeah,
Because that's
yeah,
like then
yeah,
go, not
yeah,
only is he inappropriately getting erections, but the thing that seems to trigger them is somebody farting. Like this is I mean, each to their own. I'm not here to kink shame you, but like this guy seems to get off on farts. That's why he's here at the pub. He's feeding everybody onion rings at the moment and walking around with
I'm
an erection.
cracking fats left and right. That was my sultana. I'm looking at some of the other Aussie slang that you get me with. Arvo and avo. Like
Oh, okay.
when you say arvo,
Mm,
it it throws me off because the V, I'm always
mm.
thinking evening, evening. And when you go arvo, I'm like, when's that?
Yeah,
Arvo.
well, it's because there's no R in afternoon, is there? Like, I mean, you're right. We're absolutely wrong. We've
No,
just we've just piratized the
no, you
afternoon
did.
into Arvo.
Yeah, but we've done it in like I don't know. I think like the rap community in America has
Mm,
really like created their own slang that has become like its own culture in America. Yours is
right.
mainstream. Ours is becoming mainstream. But where did budgie smugglers come from? Like what that is a
What's
budgie a
the
bird?
a budgerigar, and they're small enough that only you could smuggle like a small bird. They're a small bird. Like they're skimpy, they're speedos, they're like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
and so
I know what they are, but I didn't
yeah, but
know
I didn't know
where.
if your audience would necessarily know what budgie smugglers are without context. Like what I would say about budgie smugglers is it's a weird term because I don't know where it exactly came from. I remember a time when no one said it, and then I remember a time when everyone said it, and it's like one of those times where like that, like a Mandela effect or whatever, where you're like, did something happen and we went into a different universe where everybody just called these things budgie smugglers? But because before then, I just never remember anybody saying it.
When I first came to Australia, like
Mm,
17 years ago, it was like normal to
mm.
wear them. It was like you'd go to the beach, you could throw one on, and it was just like nobody thought anything of it. Where in America, you would get pointed at. People would point at you and be like, The fuck is that guy doing?
Mate,
And in
our
Australia,
Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, wouldn't stop getting fucking photographed in them. Like, he was a surf lifesaver, and like he would do these like regular photo opportunities where the leader of our nation would be in a pair of red budgie smugglers down at the beach.
it's so weird.
I mean,
And then,
then eating an entire raw onion and cracking a fat everywhere.
but I feel like it's kind of become passe in Australia. I don't see them much anymore. It's and maybe you'll see like an Aussie rules football team do it.
Yeah.
Like they'll go down to the beach and do it kind of as a joke or something, but that's about it. I don't think it's I think globalization has taught you guys that no one wants to see the top of your legs. Okay, here's another one that
All
gets me. Chock-a-block. What the fuck? Where? How? Why?
Chock-a-block. That's interesting. That is an interesting question. Um,
Chock-a-block.
Like, so to give people the context of chock-a-block, like what context have you heard it in it? Like if it's
So full.
crowded, right? Like
Yeah, it's
full.
very crowded.
It's chock-a-block in here tonight. It's chock-a-block. You know what? That is one of those things I've said all my life. And until this
You have
moment,
no
I've
idea.
never really like explored it. And I'm like, yeah, where does that come from, chock-a-block?
There's a lot of ones that I take and I use here now
Uh-huh.
that I forget that I'm like, oh, that's only an Australian word. And people must be looking at me like, oh, he thinks he's so cool. But it's just, it fits. The word fits. And I'll say it and like take the piss. But I got that in Britain, that's a British phrase. But I would say it all the time. And I realize sometimes I'm like, no one's saying that in America. No one ever
But
says take
I
the
think
piss.
take the piss, like that has enough cultural currency because of the British connection as well, that I think
Yeah.
people at least recognize it, what it is from context, right? They'd be like, are you British? Have you spent time in Australia? That feels like, g'day mate, or saying no worries, or any of those things that, are internationally known as being Australianisms. But chock-a-block, like that would just be mystifying to people.
No one would ever. Would you know Chock-a-block at all? No, Chock-a-block would. They'd be like, "What are you?" You would.
It's the Australian Chaka Khan Down Under show, Chock-a-block. It's great.
I'm trying to look at one more. A stubby. We would never say stubby. And a slab, a stubby. A lot of the beer, bottle-o, a lot of drinking, anything around. And I almost called this show Ifty, because I didn't know iffy was a word that you used there.
Right.
All the years I've gone there, I didn't know that was a big Australian slang. Which
Iffy.
means iffy, they say bit risky or unreasonable. And I was like,
I
perfect.
use that word constantly.
Do you really?
Yes, we've been friends for a very long time. I can't imagine that I've never used it in front of you. Like my favorite way to describe most situations are being it's a little bit iffy. You know what I mean? Like
Well, I mean, we say it too. We'd say iffy, but not like it's not a common word or one that we would like lay claim to.
Right.
We'd be like, yeah, it's iffy. Like how'd it go? It was a bit iffy.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be a common one. And then when I saw that, I was like, why didn't I use this? You, being the master of puns with your name, should have said to me, hey, why don't you call your show Iffy?
You know what it is? I probably subconsciously kept it from you. I probably never said it around you because I was like, I don't want this American coming over here weaseling in on my Will puns. No, thank you very much. I am going to subconsciously moderate my conversation around him and never use the term iffy, a term I use at least 7 times per week.
Now I just came up with the name of my show this year. This year I will be doing Iffy. I was going to call it one time. I was supposed to come over and we had to cancel the tour, but I was calling it. It was called Ifft, Ands, and Buttholes.
Oh my God.
And I had a poster and everything. And my promoter, Mary Tobin, was like, no. And I was like, yes. I go, it's already on the internet, Mary. You're not stopping this. It's the Ifft, Ands.
It's already on the internet. Where all
like,
buttholes should be.
You can't stop me now. and I'm going to segue that into this next segment, which
This
is about
thing behind me
um,
making a lot of noise. Hang on.
who's behind you?
Sorry, there's a vacuum cleaner going around the house, and it suddenly
Oh,
got.
it's a Roomba.
It's not though. It's like some. It's one of those ones where I had a Roomba, and Roomba have just sold all their information to like one of the big, IT company, like one of the big internet Silicon Valley companies, and so like they're always mapping your homes and stuff. So I went to like I was like, it wasn't enough to go, I'm going back to the old school vacuum cleaner that isn't mapping my home. I was just like, fuck you, Roomba. I'm going to the other company that is also mapping my home, but just hasn't sold that information to a big multinational Silicon Valley company yet. So like it hasn't got me back to actually vacuuming myself, which would be the actual solution. Yeah, get off the grid, buy a broom. No, thank you. Just bought a different brand.
My tech nerd guy over here
Mm.
um, has two Roombas, one that follows the other one around the room. How does it work? One's a mop, one's a vacuum.
Oh yeah.
And don't you have them programmed together? When one stops, the other one starts going. He's so pathetic.
This house is messy. Oh, it's actually very clean, but like I have 8 Roombas and they like are all over the place.
I love. Have you ever seen the? It's on Instagram every week. Someone puts like one of those baby seats on top of the Roomba,
Mhm.
and then puts their kid in it. It's the one that they can't like move out of, and then the Roomba just takes the baby around the house.
Yeah, like I mean, well, you love dogs, and like we've got dogs, and the one thing you have to be very careful about is there's not some random dog shit somewhere that, because if the Roomba goes over that and then just smears it and drags it around the rest of your house, so that's
Ugh.
fun. I mean,
Uh,
obviously, I've that's never happened to me personally, and that's not why I'm relating this story to you.
I am in Scottsdale right now. I think you've played this club, the House of Comedy. Did you ever play
Maybe.
this one?
I don't know.
Um, I got into the airport yesterday, and somebody's service dog had just taken a shit all over baggage claim, all over baggage claim, like everywhere. And I just was watching. One woman was cleaning it up, and the other woman was holding the giant German Shepherd that did it. And I knew the pain. I knew the pain the woman was in
Yeah.
because it was just like the embarrassment and everything. But I just still had to stare at her. And I come walking through and I just looked and I went, "What the fuck? Like what did you do to the airport?" And I'm guilty. I've flown with my dogs before because of, my emotional problems.
Right.
But oh well. All right. So let's say hypothetically, I want to become a citizen
Mhm.
of Australia, if Donald Trump gets reelected, uh, or if Donald Trump just doesn't go to jail. Um, I looked at your citizens test.
Okay, great.
Have you ever looked at it?
No, I've had no reason to because I was bloody born here. I don't need to pass some
I
test to
think
be an
I think
Australian,
you
mate.
I think you should worry about what type of people are coming into your country by the caliber of people, by the standard of the questions they
I mean,
ask.
are you saying that it's a hard test or an easy test?
I- It's it's fairly easy, but it's like somebody who wrote this put in a couple, there's multiple choice answers.
Uh-huh.
And I think a couple of them they like to not throw you. It's like some guy going, "Well, what, the right answer's here. Let's put in
Some
another
fun.
one."
Let's have some fun as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
There's here's one. Number 16. Which of the and I added my own, by the way. So which do you think was the Australian like guy that made this test, and which is me? Which of these statements best demonstrates Australian values about freedom of expression?
Okay, good.
A, everyone can peacefully express their opinions within the law. B, people with different views from me need to keep quiet.
Well,
Wait, don't get. C, only approved topics can be discussed.
Mm,
Or D, Pride Week is the only week that homosexuals can have intercourse.
okay.
Which one is mine? And
Mhm.
which one is that? We know probably what the right answer is, right?
Yeah, keep your opinions to
Everyone can
yourself. Welcome to
peacefully express their
Australia. Keep
opinion.
your opinions to yourself. If you don't like it, here, leave.
Keep quiet.
Keep quiet about your opinions.
Okay.
You're fine to be here as long as you shush it. Australia. Don't bring your dumb ideas here. This is our joint.
So I wrote the one that says Pride Week is the only week
Yes,
that
of course.
homosexuals can. Okay.
So
It's
that's
not it's not that more outlandish than people with different views from me need to keep quiet. Uh,
well, like the funny thing is that there is a substantial proportion of the Australian public who believes that people with different opinions from them should keep quiet. So
um, yes, well, all right. Let's see. Um, the values part of this test was awesome. Uh, uh, some of these questions, it's unbelievable. Here's one. Uh, Here it is. Which of these is a responsibility of Australian citizens aged 18 years of or older or
okay.
over? A, to attend local council meetings. B, to vote in federal and state or territory elections and in a referendum. C, to have a current Australian passport. D, to yell "oi, oi, oi" whenever somebody says "Aussie, Aussie, Aussie."
Well, number 4 is you, and number 2 is the correct answer again. That's
Boy, I didn't really go outside of the.
the,
I got to
the
talk with my writer.
structure.
Okay, here's a good one. Which is these? And I'm gonna throw you on this one because I'm gonna
Yeah,
move them around.
okay.
Which of these is an example of freedom of speech? People can peacefully protest against a government action. Australians are free to not follow a religion. C, the C word is socially acceptable in most cities. B or
So,
D, men and women are treated equally in a court of law.
well, you've tricked me by moving it up one place.
It was hard. It was hard. It
So,
was hard. It was hard to do too.
but it is kind of socially acceptable to use the C word in most situations. So you're not incorrect. All I would have accepted all 4 of those as being correct answers to that question.
Okay, yeah, I would too, and I think that'll get you into the country. This one is a trick question too. Which of these is an example of equality in Australia? A, everyone follows the same religion. B, men and women have equal rights. C, everyone belongs to the same political party. D, men are better than women at most things, but women are better at whinging.
Okay. Well, again, all would be answers that would be acceptable in Australia. So you just went back to the original formula of the correct answer being number 2 and the wrong answer, your answer being
Yes.
number 4. didn't bother shaking it up again after that failed attempt at question 3.
I struggled too hard with that one. here's, here's here's the thing. I honestly believe that if you gave this to someone coming to the country,
Yeah.
they would answer the correct answer. But if you gave this to the majority of Australia, they would have answered D.
Right. Well, the majority of Australia would also make the point that B is what they believe to be the correct answer. But if you actually valued men and women as being equal, there'd be equal amounts in parliament and the top of business, and they get paid the same for the same job. But turns out those things are not necessarily what happens in Australia, guys. Spoilers.
All right, let me see if I have any other good ones. I've got so many. Which of these statements about passports is correct? A, Australian citizens do need a passport to go to Coachella and Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is
B,
true. Yeah.
Australian
I love what
citizens
you've
can
done here, by the way. You've good work. Very good. Well done. So,
kind of Trying to
Really?
throw you, Will.
Ooh, look
Trying
at
to
this.
throw you.
Okay.
This
Well,
one's coming from
I,
left field.
I wonder which one it'll be.
Fuck that. I'm not doing this one now.
That is, for all my judgment, the reason you put your comedic one at the end is that you know to close with a strong joke. And if
I
you just
know.
open,
I
if you
know.
open
I
up with
know.
the joke, then the rest of it's going to be a disappointment. So
Yeah, but I'm looking
comedically,
at
you were
some.
structuring it very well. So I
I'm looking
take
at
it back.
some of these. I'm looking at some of these, and the joke is just so bad that I'm like, geez, who wrote this? Um, I think I led with one of my best ones, and now I'm left with some shitty ones. Which of the following is an example of contributing to the Australian community?
Mm,
Um, A, volunteering or fundraising for a charity is a great opportunity to strengthen our community.
mm,
I wrote that one. Okay, I
mm.
didn't write that one.
No.
B, not dumping in a portaloo.
Hmm.
C, I should not make any effort to get to know other people. I did not write that. The guy who made the test
I
was
should not
or the
make
girl.
any effort
I should,
to
I
get to know anybody else. Like we have to point that out as a value of being Australian, just
Yeah.
for the record.
Or C, or D, people in Australia should not contribute to the community because Australia is a free country.
Mm. Oh, that's a
Now,
good point.
that's what
Mm.
America would
Yeah.
say. America would say that it's a free country. If you want to contribute, that's your freedom. You have the freedom to do that. Aussie, you guys try to be a little better. You try to not dump in a portaloo.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's sometimes you have to dump in a portaloo, right? Like that's the truth of it. Like, you're at a music festival or something. What I would recommend to people if you are going somewhere like that, what you need to do is identify a clean portaloo on day one of a 3-day festival. And then you take a note and you put it on the outside of that portaloo that says that portaloo is out of service for the rest of the
Genius.
festival. And then you have a private toilet.
Genius. That
I've
is
been to some
genius.
festivals.
I have never. I just hold it for days, like at home. I do. I do. I'm like, no way. All right. Well, that I think that was pretty. That was good. Good. This is the first episode. We're gonna
There
work
was a
out.
there was a time when you had to, I know, on our citizenship test. I don't believe it is there anymore, but under John Howard, who was a Conservative Prime Minister of Australia, you had to identify what Sir Donald Bradman, our greatest cricketer's batting average was. That was one of the questions. Yeah,
I'm surprised they're not all like that.
right.
Like
How many Crocodile Dundee movies did Paul Hogan make?
'Cause if the Australians that Americans meet over here, that we fall in love with Australia, because the ones that come here and are just like the most happy, supposedly live by the beach and eat shrimp on the barbie, they would think that. They would think that's what Australia is. And it's funny you ask. I think if you poll Americans and you say, where would you like to travel? The number one response is Australia. It's the most coveted place in America to go. However, the percentage of people that have been to Australia is so low. It's like incredibly low.
Yeah,
And
because they believe it's a really long way away. Like that's the
it
fun.
is.
Well, it's not. Like, I mean, I guess it depends on your perspective, right? Like, which is we were born on an island, and so we know that if we've ever wanted to travel internationally, like you can't drive across a border. It's never been an option for Australians. Like to go to another country, even if it's Indonesia or somewhere
Oh
close,
yeah.
New Zealand, you need to get on a plane to travel. So
Oh
this
yeah.
idea, and because England was obviously, you used to up to age of 30. I don't know what the rules are anymore, but you used to basically be as an Australian, you could go and work in the UK without a visa, or there was like an under 30s reciprocal visa that you could go over and work in the UK. So many Australian kids would, at the end of their like high school, they would get on a plane and fly. I mean, it's 20 plus hours, 24 hours to the UK and then go and live in Europe and stuff. So for us, like flying to America always feels like it's not even that big a trip. But to Americans, they might as well be going to like Narnia or whatever. They're just like,
Oh
no,
yeah,
it's too far away.
look. I go every year, and I prepare like I'm climbing Everest. I mean, I pack a bag for the plane. I have a Sherpa that comes with me. Am I write a schedule of what I'm going to do on the plane. I'm like, this is 15 hours. I need something to do every hour of the 15 hours, or I'll have an anxiety attack. I just, and I'm just like, okay, so, and then if I fall asleep, I'm like, okay, bonus. I just now everything's cut into half hours. Like I'm gonna watch TV for half hour. I'm gonna write jokes for half hour. I'm gonna write my Adelaide Fringe set for a half hour.
Well, so that half an hour of work wouldn't have got done on it if you didn't have that 14 and a half hour flight.
Yeah, thank God for that flight. I have a whole show. um, yeah. Buy tickets to my show. I'll be there this year, Adelaide Fringe. All right. So let's say I'm coming to Australia and I want to, or it's happened to me. It happened to me once here where I got called into an audition and the guy said to me, oh, he's like, this character is Australian. And I went, I'm American. And he goes, yeah, we know, but we know you go to Australia a lot. And so we thought you could do an Australian accent. And I was like, and the truth is, I cannot. All the times I've been there, I cannot do, and I'll do it every once in a while in a show, like I'll imitate someone that I was talking to, and then the audience is kind of like, mate, and then after the show, they're like, I'm like, hey, great show, except don't do that again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so the technical side of this is that Australians speak from the front of our mouths and Americans speak from the back of their mouths, right? So your words
Oh,
tend to come from the throat and the back of your mouth, and that's how the accent comes from that as well. Whereas Australians speak from, so if you want to do an Australian accent, you have to kind of speak from just behind your teeth and like
I
push your
never
words
thought of
out
that.
from then. It thins everything. See, it just thins
Oh, there you
everything
go,
out
mate.
immediately.
Oh, got you
Yeah.
mean. Oh, makes a big difference, mate.
It does.
I feel like Reese Darby. oh, he's Kiwi. So the guy said to me, and I can do a little bit of a Bogan accent. That's about it. So he goes, "Can you do an Australian accent?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I get up there, and he goes, "Just improv something for me." And I was like, and I went, "Oh, get fuck you fucking cunt." And the guy was like, okay, thank you. You can go. And I was like,
I mean, that's
like,
pretty
but I was
Australian.
like, that's what I thought. I thought I
That would
was
be my
trying.
impression. If I was like, sometimes this is what I loved when I was working in the States was because, of course, sometimes I am impersonating, like you said, like someone of a different life perspective in my act. So all my Australian accents probably don't sound. So I would like do these characters where I'm like leaning into, that sort of accent more than I would be leaning into my own accent. And then eventually I did have someone after a show going, you know what? All those voices sound exactly the same to us. There is no differentiation to our ears in between. I can see you trying to do something different, but we're hearing the same noise.
So in Australia, the accents
Yes,
do differ. I
of
used to do a
course.
joke about how it gets more nasally the more north you go.
Yeah,
And uh, in America, it's very weird, and how from going
I do.
from Minneapolis to Pittsburgh to Florida, everybody's got a different accent, and it's the same in Britain. Britain, they're completely different. You're like, are you
Mm-hmm.
speaking the same language? But what I thought was, if I was to try to audition to be an Australian, I'm going to give you some. I want you to coach me
Okay,
on
great.
Australian accent, and I'm going to give you some quotes from famous movies, and you tell me how I would say it.
Okay,
So
great.
here's from 1987's Dirty Dancing.
Uh-huh.
Nobody puts baby in the corner. Now you can use Aussie slang. You can say it how an Aussie would say it, because I don't think they would say nobody puts baby in the corner.
They probably wouldn't say nobody puts baby. What's baby doing in the fucking corner?
That is it. Oh, mate.
Mate, I saw a baby in the corner. What the fuck's she doing over there in the corner?
No,
Someone
but
get a
baby was.
someone
I
get a
think
ding,
baby
someone get a dingo
baby
to get that baby out of the corner.
ba- baby's talking about herself, so
Yeah.
she'd be like,
Oh yeah.
"Me,
Don't, don't put me in the fucking corner, you fucking cunt.
the way you
No,
guys say
no
me."
cunt puts me in the corner.
There it is. There it is. No cunt. No cunt. No, no cunt puts me in the corner. I can't do it. All right, let's do another one. Just because it's in, topical right now. Top Gun.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel the need for speed.
Yeah. Anyone got any goey?
Is that meth?
Well, yeah, speed. Like goey slang, Australian slang for speed. So anyone, you holding some goey? You chasing some goey?
Okay, let's do. Let's find another one. Wow. Here's an easy one. Rocky.
Yeah.
Yo, Adrian.
Yo, Adrian. What would Australians say? Oi, Adrian.
It's the easiest one.
Oi, Adrian.
Did you see if he did that after? Oi.
Oi, Adrian.
Oi.
Oi, Adrian.
Because oi is way more
Oi.
blunt and rude than yo. Yo's
Yeah.
like yo. Oi's like oi.
Oi.
Oi. Oi, Adrian. And then what did he say? I did it for you. Oh wait, I forget what he said. All I remember is the other one. If my favorite Rocky quote is when he talks to Ivan Drago and makes peace between Russia and the United States, which I think he could solve this problem with the Ukraine and Russia right now with that.
Can I tell you, when I was living in West Hollywood, Ivan Drago, Dolph Lundgren himself, lived in the same apartment block as me. So often, often I would just like see him in the foyer of the apartment, and then like sometimes there'd be like an Amazon package or whatever left in the foyer for like Dolph Lundgren, and the amount of times I was like so tempted to. My friend Charlie like went to there was a little gym in the apartment block, and like one day he was in the gym working out with Ivan Drago in the apartment block.
I have a number of those. Whenever people talk about celebrities, I've been LA and New York forever, and you see a bunch of them. I get so much more excited by like before Cobra Kai came back, when Ralph Macchio wasn't cool again. I was obsessed with him. I stalked him at my agency because we had the same agency. I saw him in New York. I waited. I came in early one day because I knew he had a meeting so that I could see him. Then when I went to LA, I was telling the story about how I stalked him in New York. They're like, "Oh, he's a client here too, and he's coming in next week." I was like, "What day?" I went there that day because I thought we'll both buy Coastal, we'll be friends, we'll hang out. And they told me I creeped him out so badly. And I just had this whole idea that me and Ralph Macchio were going to be hanging out. Probably the greatest C ever was Turbo from Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. Godfrey, my friend Godfrey, Godfrey, the comedian, sees Turbo in the street one day and yells, "Turbo!" And Turbo went.
I did okay.
He did the wave for him. He's like, "Turbo," because I'm sure that's not his real name. Here's a great one to make Australian. Jerry Maguire, you had me at hello.
Well, I mean, we know how it finishes. Do we just leave it the same? Would it be? You had me doesn't sound very Australian either, though, does it? Like,
no,
no.
Because it would be, we know how it finishes.
No, an Australian woman in that same situation. Because the scenario is that he's just, like, he's done this big speech about, like, how much he loves her and everything, isn't it? And then she says, "You had me at hello." That is like the context. So I was wet at G'day.
Can you imagine if that was the film?
The Australian version, Jezza Maguire.
if she was if she was like standing there holding her shoes.
She's like, post races, they've been at the races. She's like in her best frock, like
She's
runny
like-
nose. She'd
she's
fallen
like,
into a bin in the afternoon.
Oh, mate, hit me
Mate.
wet it. Fucking
Yeah,
good
I
day,
mean,
mate.
I was wet at g'day, mate.
That's my theory of why they don't do. I've never seen Australian pornography ever, and I think it's because of the accent. And I've never ever seen. I don't know if it exists. I don't know if is it legal to even shoot in Australia.
No, it's legal, and there are some famous Australian pornographers. But I agree with you that, like, from an Australian, like the majority of the times that I've ever had like personal, you know, it's mostly been like it sounds fine coming out of them in person, is what I'm saying. But like on film, it's like in movies. You're like, I'm happier to hear Chris Hemsworth talk in his American voice than his Australian voice.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
sounds weird. Stop doing that.
It's like watching an American do Bollywood. You
Yeah.
don't do it. Just some things. I think America. We've cornered the market on pornography. It's ours. Here, let's do one more of these. Let's see. Caddyshack. It's too long. These are a lot of old ones. I need some. This one, I love Airplane, but I'm serious and don't call me Shirley.
I mean,
That
it
would
wouldn't.
be a
It,
hard-
yeah, it'd be like. This is not what it would be, but this is what I'm going to say it would be. I'm Yahoo serious, and don't call me Shirl. We call Shirley's in Australia Shirl. In fact, there was a lead
Oh,
singer of a band.
yeah.
There was a lead singer of a band called Skyhooks, a very famous Australian man called Shirley Strawn, who died in a helicopter accident. But he was the lead singer of an Australian band called Skyhooks that were very popular.
Have celebrities started to figure out that helicopters crash?
I mean, helicopters crash. There is no doubt about the fact that helicopters
lot.
crash. But
A lot.
I mean, yeah, I guess they do. I mean, I don't know.
A lot.
Is
I
it a
look
lot?
statistic. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I look statistic. Like everybody goes, "Oh, you take so many risks." I'm like, no, I don't. I actually look and I calculate the risk I make. And everybody's like, "Oh, you surf," and I'm like, shark attacks are not that often if you look at them statistically. I will not get on a helicopter. I've been on helicopters. I will never
Yeah.
get on one again. I just know. I know people that have like died in helicopter. I don't know people that died in plane crashes. I know people that die in helicopter crashes. Now, everyone I know has flown in a plane. Very few people I know have flown in helicopters. I am never flying in a helicopter again.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I once flew in a helicopter over New York City
Oh,
on
yeah, I've done
the
that.
anniversary of 9/11.
Oh,
It was, I know, it had not planned it to be that date. Only kind of worked out that it was because we were traveling from Australia. You know how like it's just one of those things where
Yeah.
and particularly because we tell the date in a different way. Like 9/11,
Yeah.
you always forget it's actually 11/9 in
11/9.
Australian. Like, right. So we had to film this thing for a TV show. And so we were filming like the opening of this thing over New York City, like shooting at night, like as we flew over the city. But the cameraman was like, to get the shot, was hanging out the side of the helicopter on one side, and I kind of had to vaguely hang out the side of the helicopter on the other side so you could get the city. So you're telling me that wasn't safe?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it didn't feel very safe when we were doing it, to be honest.
Can you imagine if you crashed into the World Trade Center? and you were like the other 9/11.
Never forgot. Never forgot, guys.
The other 9/11. It was a little crash, like a little helicopter that went in. Nothing happened. The helicopter
the building was
disintegrated.
fine. The helicopter.
Yeah.
The only people who died were the helicopter pilot, a cameraman, and a comedian. The other 9/11.
I'm surprised they even let you. We went around it before 9/11.
Yeah.
I went. Do you know Lynn Coplitz, comedian?
No.
Very funny comedian. For her birthday, one day she was like, "Come on, I want to go on a helicopter ride." So we went up, and the guy did a loop. He's like, "It's your birthday, come on!" And we did a loop around the World Trade Centers. This is when they were still standing. That's how long ago it was. But I just remember being like, this is just scary as shit. And I think now I don't know if you're allowed to fly anywhere near that, because I flew in a plane once over England, in a single engine Cessna with a friend, and we landed at his airport, and his buddies are like, hey, where were you today? And he's like, well, first we went over Stonehenge, and all his friends are like, illegal. And he's like, huh? They're like, that's a military training zone. And he was like, oh. And then then he goes, yeah, then we came downtown, and I went and took them all over downtown, and they're like, in a single engine. And he's like, yeah. They're like, you're lucky you didn't get shot down. They're like, you're not allowed to be. This guy used to fly me to my gigs all over England, and like the next week he's like, hey, you want to go to Cardiff? I'll fly you there. And I was like, no, I'm gonna take the train. You're done.
You don't know what you're doing. You don't know any of the rules.
No, he didn't. And now that guy owns one of those like Red Bull racing.
Oh yeah,
you know where the planes race.
He's like, I'm gonna lean into this, the idea of not obeying any of the rules. Yeah,
he did. He worked his whole life, created that, and then the very first race, a plane crashed and a guy died. And I was like, I called him and I'm like, sorry to hear it. So what are you gonna do now? Like, you new profession, right? He's like, no. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna stay away from you and airplanes. And all right, I have no more quotes from movies that are any good. There was one, but Poltergeist, I'm thinking they're here. I feel like there's something that can be said. Here's a great one. Scarface, say hello to my little friend.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, let's say good day to my little mate, surely.
It's just funny to hear it. It's just so funny. If that could be dubbed
say
over.
Good day to my little mate.
I would love to see somebody cut that and dub that voice in.
Just localize a few things, just so people understand what he's going on about. Say good day to my little mate.
Oh, I would love somebody's going to do. Somebody's probably already done it. Everything that you think now exists on the internet. Did you notice no one accuses anyone of stealing jokes anymore because every joke is on the internet in 7,000 different places?
It was always the case. I mean, of course, there's
I agree.
been people who's stolen jokes, and like, you know, you know what it's like. Sometimes you've fucking done it yourself by going, this came into my mind, but I don't know if this is in my mind because I read it somewhere or heard it somewhere or whatever. And sometimes, you know, it takes a while for that to sort itself out. But nowadays, we actually know what was mostly true that the rest of the time was. The majority of times when somebody was like, you stole that joke, it was just parallel thought. It was somebody having the same ingredients and going, oh yeah, well, with those ingredients, you're going to make something that, you know, tastes a little bit the same as what somebody else working on the same thing would do. And I think it's changed comedy forever. I mean, of course it has, but all those jokes now are just so boring. Like, I don't know what you're like, but in the old days, there would have been those style of jokes, like the thing that you would now see on Twitter the day of whatever that thing is that happened, that would be in your act. But now you don't even bother putting them, like, unless you were doing a show that day, you're like, well, every joke about this topic will be made by the time I get to the show tonight. Like, there's no point me doing that. So I actually love that because it pushes you into... It makes you say, okay, there's no way this first thought is the most creative or interesting thought here.
Right. And I think, you know, it's like you have to go so personal because and you have to find what's so unique about you. Like I wrote a joke about, I had to take my dogs to rattlesnake aversion training. And I wrote this whole long bit about it, about how the snakes were wearing helmets. That's the way they keep them from biting you. And the whole joke is not even about that. It's about the guy whose job is to make rattlesnake helmets. Like that's what he does for a living. and I'm like, there's no one who could ever do a joke about this ever.
Right.
Sure enough, I'm in a comedy club one night and this comic's like, so they train red dogs to, and I'm like, oh, fuck mother. It's unbelievable. Like there's
Yeah.
just no original thought whatsoever. And you better have gone on like a mushroom trip that no one's been on that's going to get you to that place. Um, I was going to go with like debating, but we don't even have time for that. We flew through this show. Um, I wish we could make it a two-parter. I've got to go do a show. I'm on
Yeah.
stage in like 20 minutes. I
I'm
can't believe you did this.
That's all right.
I can't
Thank
believe
you.
you did it.
It was
I
fun.
love you. I love you. I'm so glad you came on the show. One of my favorite comics. One of my like you have just been there for me since day one. When you first had me on Glass House, when no joke, I didn't understand anything you guys were saying. I swear to God, I was just fake laughing the whole time. I was like,
Because you couldn't
and
understand our accent, or because of the topics we were talking about, or a
no,
combination of both.
no, I could I read when I get to a city, I just read the newspaper
Yeah.
constantly, the local papers. I just get into it,
Mm.
and so I was very like up on what was going on. But and it wasn't you. I had trouble with Dave
Yeah.
Hughes, when
He has
was
a
on the
very
Glass House,
thick Australian accent.
and I can understand him now. But I
Yeah.
literally was like, everybody was dying
Mm.
laughing at him, and I
Yeah.
was going, "The fuck did he just say?"
Yeah.
And I had no idea, and I was like, "Is something wrong with me?" And so I went home and they taped it for me, my agents, and I watched it like in slow motion. I'm trying to like figure out. I would like rewind, play, and I'm like, "Why are they laughing? What is he saying?" And I'd be like, I can't figure this out. I cannot figure out what he's saying. You were pretty understandable, and who is
Corinne.
Corinne? Yeah, how is Corinne?
She's great. She's a human rights lawyer. She's got a family,
Oh
and
wow,
yeah, I mean, she actually did something with her life. She's, she did something productive that helps the world with her life,
that's
rather than
amazing.
wasting it telling dick jokes to strangers.
Yeah, isn't it amazing when we can squash down our narcissism and actually
Work on
try to
behalf of others,
contribute?
try to
Yeah,
help. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. The only problem is I have my wife pushing me and doing stuff like this. So,
Oh man, it's
um,
so so ridiculous.
really, you think this is ridiculous? I think it's totally normal.
I think this is you're identifying the major problem that Ned Kelly would have had, like barking out orders to the rest of the gang. Like he's left no, they would have been like, "What's that, Ned? I can't hear you, mate." Like, and he
Didn't
couldn't hear
Ned
them
make
either
his own?
because he's
Didn't Ned make his own outfit though?
yes, but that's not practical. You can't hear anything like that he says, and he can't hear anything in return. No wonder they fucking got ambushed
Plus,
and
the
captured.
first bullet to go through here, and Ned's dead.
Yeah, again, yeah, like the Australian cops must have had aim like stormtroopers because, like, just shoot him in the eyes.
Well, Will, where
Uh,
can the people that are watching the show find you?
yeah, so people can, I mean, look, just it's Will Anderson with one L. Just Google that, and I'll be in the places that there's websites and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and podcasts.
You got
And
a bunch of tours coming up for next year?
so I just taped this year's show, Well Logical. So did that at the Athenaeum in Melbourne last Sunday night. So that is taped and will play sometime somewhere before the end of the year. And then I'm going to write a new show for the festival next year. So I've got to start thinking about that.
You are one of the most prolific people I know. I can't believe how much material you just punch out. It's incredible.
It's a small country, Eddie. There's not enough opportunity to not keep writing new material.
And my last question: are you still doing the TV show?
Yes, I have two actually. I have a television show called Gruen that people, if they're in Australia, can watch on ABC iView. We've just finished up another season of that, which was our 14th year of doing that show. And then I have another show which is called Question Everything, which is a new show. So we did a little season of that last year, and then during the lockdown. But this year we're doing it in front of an audience for the first time, and that'll be on ABC TV towards the end of the year.
The what's it called? The Gruen isn't Gruen Transfer? Isn't that?
So it was originally called the Gruen Transfer. It's now just called Gruen. It's been called Gruen for a while because we had a whole bunch of different names for it, and then we just thought we'd simplify. So yeah, it's called Gruen,
It's a great
Gruen.
show. It's an awesome concept. Um, I feel like I want to be serious for a second. I feel like it couldn't work in America because it's too good. It's so good. And I've just always loved that show concept. And I wish, did you guys ever try to sell it to America? Because
Yeah,
it's such a
yeah,
good
we
show.
absolutely did. I mean, we had so many meetings because it's been a hugely successful show in Australia. Like it was the number one show on the ABC for like over a decade. You know, it's like, and it is an original concept. So there isn't a show like it anywhere else in the world. And so we had a lot of meetings in America. You know, obviously when something's successful somewhere else, they want to see if they can do an American version of it. And America obviously is the home of advertising. You know, like I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you're launching advertisements during the Super Bowl. Like you know, they spend more money on advertising in America than they do in any other country in the world. So there was a lot of interest. We got close at a couple of places, but the big problem was, you know, eventually every single network would be, I just don't think we can do a show that criticizes advertising when
Yeah. Yeah.
our entire
Yeah.
business is supported by advertising. They were too worried about offending the sponsors. And so that's why we're lucky in Australia. We have the ABC, which is obviously, you know,
Yeah.
public broadcasting and not advertising supported, so that we can say whatever the fuck we like and no one's going to get mad at us for that. But that was always the problem with pitching it overseas, was that they were just too worried about the fact that their sponsors would drop them if we made jokes about their sponsors.